So, hi everybody. My name is Airong Luo, and I work with Eric at the Office of Enabling Technologies of my medical school. And thanks for Vlad and Eric for giving a very interesting presentation on the technical component of cyber infrastructure. I'm going to shift the gear and talk about how cyber infrastructure support international collaboration, and I'll focus on the social component and the human resources in cyber infrastructure. So by human resources, I mean people, social networks, and organizational arrangements that manage human and social structures that sustain cyber infrastructure. So human resources in cyber infrastructure can take different forms. I'll just give you a few examples. The first one is project manager. I'm sorry, I wish I could find a happier image for project managers, but I didn't, I don't know. So project managers play very important roles in cyber infrastructure efforts. They plan the work, coordinate between different sites, and also they are the contact people for different sites. Whenever you find a problem, if there is a project manager, you know who to go to ask for help, and they will introduce you to other people that you might seek help from. And in one of the projects, we work with 4 African institutions, and some of them have a project manager available, and some of them couldn't have fund for their project manager. So we see a big difference. For the sites without a project manager, it's very hard to have the accountability from that site. And it's hard for us to know, whenever something happens, who should we contact? And it's always very inefficient to work with sites without a project manager. And another form of human resource in cyber infrastructure can be, we call it collaboration core. Basically, it's a kind of designated department to facilitate collaboration between different sites. This is a kind of org chart for Peking University Joint Institute for Translational and Clinical Research. So if you look at the vertical circles, you can see the 3 diseases that the research programs focus on in the Joint Institute. And if you look at the horizontal circles, you can see that 3 cores that facilitate the research programs. And one of them is collaboration core, which I and a Peking University researcher co-lead. So the responsibility of a collaboration core in this joint institute is to help identify the needs of the researchers, and we try to understand the collaboration processes, and try to, based on our research findings, we provide the managed team advice on strategies regarding communication, coordination, and project management. And we also provide some suggestions on what kind of collaborative tools they should adopt for communication. So the third format, I call it organically developed work groups. It's just I coined this term. This is an example from high-energy physics collaboration. And I saw Ben there, who is a participant in this huge collaboration. So it has about maybe more than 3,000 physicists from 37 countries and 160 some institutions from all the world to participate in this project. And so some physicists, actually I'm very proud to say from Michigan, identified the needs to use collaborative tools to support efficient collaboration among the 3,000 physicists. So they formed a work group, and this work group grew organically. And this work group took the responsibility to identify tools to support collaboration. They also engaged the leadership and funding agencies to support building a very robust environment for collaboration. So here are the tools they are using now in high-energy physics collaboration. The Indico digital conference system. So they use the system for scheduling and for archiving their meeting minutes and presentations. And they use Twiki for sharing documents. And they use Evo for video conference system. But now I heard that they're going to switch to video for video conference. Yeah. So, and their efforts really show the results, because I remember when I visited CERN, which is the physical center of this collaboration in Geneva in 2006. I didn't see many of their conference rooms were equipped with this kind of conferencing systems. But when I revisited them this year, I saw most of their conference rooms were really well equipped for video conference. Okay, so despite the importance of human resources in cyber infrastructure, knowledge is still lacking regarding the coordination and the social practices to support cyber infrastructure efforts. So therefore, social scientists, including me, devote their efforts to study the collaboration process and to try to understand how to build, how to have human resources to contribute to cyber infrastructure efforts. And at the same time, we identify many challenges in cyber infrastructure efforts, because cyber infrastructure efforts usually involve collaboration among people from different national culture, organizational, different national culture, organizational culture, and disciplinary culture. And usually, the tasks for cyber infrastructure development or use of cyber infrastructure are uncertainty. So as a social scientist, I want to understand how to align the organizations and actors to achieve the cyber infrastructure to support collaboration. And I'm going to give you a few examples of project I've been working on in the past 3 years. So the first one is the Health OER network. So we work with 4 African institutions. We try to build a network to facilitate production and sharing of open educational materials. And the second project is funded by NSF. We try to understand the social and technical factors that lead to successful international collaboration between developed countries and emerging countries, such as China. The third project actually is funded by the medical school. I talk about this project. It's the Peking University Joint Institute for Translational Research. The fourth project is a small study I did for the Office of Cyber Infrastructure. I try to identify faculty members' needs from our institution to support their participation in international collaboration. So when study this project, this is the theoretical framework I'm trying to use. So according to literature, there are three scales of infrastructure. The first one is institutionalizing. That is, we generate some sustainable goods and service to support collaboration. The examples are maybe some fundings and facilities. And the second component is enacting technology, and it's kind of self-explaining. That is to design and build technology to support collaboration tasks. And the third component is organizing work. So that is you try to manage people to work together to support collaboration. And if you look at the inner cycle, you will find different tasks that involved in different collaborations. So for collaboration readiness, that means you get people ready for collaboration, you help them identify collaborators and build trust, and for data, and you need to also help them for data and sample management, and for project management, and also to facilitate communication between different institutions and different researchers. So in my research, I'm trying to examine how to build infrastructure to support collaborations that involve this kind of task, and considering the three scales of infrastructure. Now I'm going to talk briefly about what I learned from this project. So there are many findings, but I'm just going to list the top 5. So I think it's very important if you want to start international collaboration that you should do. So the first one, I call it institutionalizing. And at the lunch session, the panel session, we heard very interesting talk about move the food for the cat. And so, and it's similar, you know. I want to argue that it's, you know, people have talked a lot about this, but we still want to see, you know, institutions set up policies to incentivize people to participate in large-scale collaboration. So I can give you examples. I talked to a researcher who ran a multi-center international collaboration, and he was saying that being a PI on this project, and it's really much more time-consuming than working with American researchers, because, you know, maybe for the first 2 years, you really spend on infrastructure building. I mean that, you know, you want to make sure that in some institution in Africa, you have the right facility to work on this project, or you identify the right people to work on this project. That means, you know, for 2 years, you might not be able to publish any, we call it solid publications in the renowned journals. But this researcher will be evaluated based on the same criteria as other researchers who only collaborate with American researchers or who do not collaborate with other people. So, you know, especially junior researchers will really hesitate to participate in large-scale international collaboration. And I also want to say, because collaboration involves data sharing and sample sharing, it's very important to clear the policy issues beforehand. Because researchers participating in this kind of collaboration are regulated by different national, organizational policies. And also we found that it's very interesting that people think differently about their contribution to project. For example, for the US researchers, they might think, oh, you know, I'm the person to have this brilliant idea, and of course, I am the first author of this article. But for some researchers in other countries, they might think, I'm the person who contribute most of the data. I should be the first author. So then you see the controversy. And so it's important for the collaboration to set up the policy to clarify, who should be the author and who can be counted to contribute to certain kind of work. The second thing I want to point out is that, we should see that infrastructure is kind of embedding, which means that when we talk about cyber infrastructure, we usually think about the virtual part of cyber infrastructure. We think about the virtual organization that consists of participants from different countries and different institutions. But actually, these researchers are located in their own organizations, and their local organizations' support played a very important role in supporting their participation in cyber infrastructure. So it's very important for people to understand how to engage the resources in their local institutions for their participation in cyber infrastructure efforts. I can give you one example. So in the University of Michigan, Peking University Joint Institute, we identify the disparity in research capacity. And Peking University researchers thought they really need to be trained to improve their junior researchers' research capability. And then we found that the Michigan Institute for Clinical and Health Research has a lot of great training programs. So we work with them to design training programs for the Joint Institute. So we use the existing resources. But sometimes, unfortunately, we couldn't find support from existing resources. I'll give you another example, also from the Joint Institute. So we want to find a system that is already supported by the Michigan Institute for Clinical and Health Research for the researchers for data collection and research management. But unfortunately, we found that all the systems that are currently available at Michigan cannot work really well with the Chinese language. So that means we have to develop a new system. And a software team is working on developing the system. But at the same time, we should be very careful. We don't want the system to be an orphan system. By orphan system, I mean that after the software team is disresolved, and there's nobody who is going to support this system. So, and when the researchers have any problems, they don't have anybody to help, either from here or from Peking University. So now we are working with Michigan Institute for Clinical and Health Research, MISHRE, and to identify, after the development work finished, who's going to do the support work, and how this system will be embedded in the existing infrastructure system. So the third thing I want to emphasize is project management. Again, so I have talked a little bit about the importance of a project manager. But unfortunately, so many scientists are used to working under the mechanism what we call cottage industry. That is independent researchers, led postdocs, and a few doctor students in their own lab and pursue their independent research. But now, when researchers have to collaborate with people from other institutions, they need to think about how to work with a community. And project management play a very important role because these researchers from every institution we found, they are very busy and they work on different projects. And if there's nobody who manages this project, they tend to drop the ball or they're behind the schedule. So project management is really important for holding everybody accountable for this project and for monitoring the progress. I also want to emphasize, the important part of quality control, especially for biomedical collaboration. Because there's a large number of participants, including clinical researchers and clinical staff, and also maybe IT people. And quality problems tend to occur because of the human errors. So it's important to emphasize quality control for this kind of large collaboration. And we found that training is very helpful. It's very interesting. And when we studied this project, we found that, people have who got different research, who got training from different research culture, also got different understanding of what high quality is. Somebody say, oh, this is good. And what do you mean by good? It's hard to quantify. And, and when the Peking University researchers came here for training, they were very surprised by how detail-oriented the researchers here are. So they really learned, what we mean by high quality. And our researchers learned that, what we need to pay attention when we work with other institutions about quality control. And research often emphasizes that because we work with different sites, it's important for standardization. And we use technology for standardization and to control quality. So that requires the IT people to work closely with the researchers. So the researchers will tell the IT people, how they want the system design to be accomplished so that they can achieve their quality control. For example, they can design in this way that, almost they can set up the maximum value for some certain kind of data entry. So if you exceed this value, the system will tell you error message. In this way, you avoid some mistakes. And it's also important to consistently monitor different sites. So through a communication from all sides, so it's important to set up the communication plan for monthly project meetings so that everybody can report their problems, and then they can have a kind of problem-solving sessions, and they can report their progress, etc. So this is a picture of the PKU researchers were trained how to do sample handling. And that is all for my presentation. Thank you very much.